One of the deadliest man-made disasters in history began with birds. Another war ended with a modern army defeated by animals that couldn't even fly, and another turned rats into a psychological weapon against soldiers. These weren't metaphors. These were real military campaigns. This is the story of 3 times humans went to war against animals, and what happened when nature fought back. These wars didn't happen in ancient myths. They happened in the 20th century, with governments involved, with weapons, with soldiers following orders. Every campaign began with confidence. Every campaign ended in failure, humiliation, or catastrophe. The first battlefield was completely underground. War against rats, Vietnam. At the turn of the 20th century, the French wanted Hanoi to look modern, European, a modern sewer system, clean, efficient, a symbol of progress. But underground, the city was changing in ways no one had planned. Perfect conditions for rats. They multiplied rapidly, faster than the city could react. Soon, rats flooded the markets. They invaded kitchens and homes. They contaminated food supplies. And more dangerously, they carried disease. So the authorities declared war. Not with soldiers, not with poison, but with incentives. A simple idea: for every rat tail delivered to the authorities, a reward would be paid. 1 tail, 1 coin. The results seemed immediate. Every day, thousands of tails were brought in. Far more rats than officials believed existed. At first, the program was celebrated as a success, until a disturbing pattern began to emerge. People had stopped killing the rats. Instead, they cut off the tails and released the animals back into the sewers. Alive rats meant reproduction. More rats meant more tails. More tails meant more money. Soon, tailless rats were seen running through the streets of Hanoi. Some residents went even further. They began raising rats deliberately. What was meant to be an extermination campaign had become an industry. The rat population had exploded. Public trust had collapsed, and the city remained infested. This wasn't a failure of execution. It was a failure of understanding. The rats weren't smarter. They weren't stronger. They weren't harder to kill. They simply adapted to the rules humans created. This episode became a quiet embarrassment for the colonial administration. A reminder that when humans try to control complex systems with simple incentives, those systems don't resist, they evolve. The war against the rats of Hanoi was never really about rats. It was about what happens when control replaces insight and when unintended consequences are ignored until it's too late. The Emu War, Australia. In 1932, Australia had a problem. Thousands of emus were destroying farmland and crops, so the government made a decision. They sent the military with machine guns. The plan was simple: eliminate the emus. What followed became known as the Emu War. Almost immediately, things went wrong. Emus didn't move in groups. They scattered. They ran fast. They took bullets and kept going. Machine guns jammed. Ammunition ran out. The birds adapted. One officer later said the emus seemed to have a military strategy of their own. After weeks of fighting and thousands of rounds fired, the emus were still there. The mission was quietly abandoned. The Australian army had officially lost a war. To birds, no famine, no collapse, just national embarrassment. But the final war shows what happens when humans actually win. War against sparrows, China. In 1958, Chairman Mao launched the 4 Pests campaign. The goal was to eliminate animals believed to harm agriculture: rats, flies, mosquitoes, and sparrows. Sparrows were blamed for eating grain seeds, so the order was given: exterminate them. Entire cities were mobilized. People banged pots and pans for hours to keep sparrows in the air until they collapsed. Nests were destroyed, eggs smashed, millions of birds were killed. And at first, it worked. Crop yields appeared to rise. China had won its war. But sparrows weren't just eating grain. They were eating insects. Without sparrows, insect populations exploded. Locusts and pests destroyed crops across the country. The ecosystem collapsed. This contributed directly to the Great Chinese Famine. An estimated 15 to 45 million people died. Eventually, China was forced to import sparrows from the Soviet Union to restore balance. This was the only war humans completely won, and it cost millions of lives. Across these three wars, the pattern is clear. Against rats, humans suffered psychologically. Against emus, humans were humiliated. Against sparrows, humans won, and millions died. The mistake was always the same. Humans assumed nature was simple, predictable, replaceable. It isn't. Animals don't follow doctrine. They don't respect borders. And ecosystems don't survive when you remove one piece and expect nothing to change. When humans go to war against animals, the real battlefield isn't land, it's balance. These wars aren't jokes, they're warnings. Not about animals, but about overconfidence. Because the most dangerous enemy isn't nature itself. It's believing we can control it without consequences. And if this is what happened when we fought animals, what happens when we fight the systems that keep us alive?